All right, so my last video, you guys gave me some good feedback. For one, said I was slouching a lot, which kind of plays into the second feedback, which you guys were like, what were you on? You know, what were you taking? You guys thought I was taking a bunch of gummies or something. But I wasn't taking anything. I was totally sober. I was tired. I don't think I'm as tired this time. And then probably some of you are probably thinking now too. You know, okay, you have like some gaming stuff on your channel. Why are you all of a sudden going to like moon conspiracy stuff? I'm probably gonna get this. Probably gonna get shadow banned from YouTube if I'm not already for this. Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about this because this is a very controversial subject, and I think it's widely underthought in society. A lot of people I talk to, I've had somebody tell me, you know, man, I thought you were a pretty intelligent person until you started talking about this. You know, and so. And I think they underthought the situation. I don't think they gave it fair thought. So why am I not convinced that we landed on the moon? Well, for one, I don't recall ever going there, and I don't think you ever said. Okay, I'm kidding. All right. So the biggest reason right up front that I'm not convinced we ever went to the moon is because I don't trust who's saying we went to the moon. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I don't believe we went to the moon because, well, I'm not convinced. And as far as that goes, I think there's a big thing here. For one, I'm not following what other people believe. I'm not following what the masses believe, at least on this matter. It's probably more than 50%. Probably the majority thinks that we've been to the moon. That's what we're taught. But yeah, so right out the gate, I'm like, I don't have to have a reason to believe we didn't go. I just don't have to be. I just have to be not convinced that we did go. You know, my baseline position here starts with I don't know if we went. That's where it starts. You know, just because maybe they taught you in school that we went to the moon, maybe you're starting in the position of, oh, we went to the moon. Now I have to be convinced otherwise. Maybe that's how you started. Maybe that's what you do. But I don't start that way. Maybe I used to. But I start, hey, I don't know. I would have to take someone's word for it either way to believe that we did go or that we didn't go. And you know, saying that I'm not convinced we went to the moon or I don't think we went to the moon, that's not to say I think we didn't go to the moon. There's a big difference there. There's very big semantic difference. One is a positive affirmation, we went to the moon. I think we went to the moon. The other is, I think we didn't go to the moon. Well, I'm neither of those. Both of those is I think. You know, I think we went to the moon. I think we didn't go to the moon. I don't know. I'm in the middle. You know, so. But I will say I lean on the side that we didn't go to the moon. I do really lean on that side. And of course, this means that if we didn't go to the moon, or if you're going to entertain the possibility, if you're going to accept that you really don't know, if you're someone who's going to do that, if you're going to consider the possibility. You know, if you're going to be open to the possibility that we didn't go to the moon, you're going to have to be open to the possibility that the masses are being deceived. And that is something that's hard for people to do. But that is a rational position for many people. That's, to say, I don't know. And it's certainly possible that we could be deceived by NASA, government organizations, and so on. For one, I'm talking off the cuff here. I'm not sure if I should just throw things out there, everything that's on my mind, or if I should try to structure this a little bit. I'm holding back saying some things because people don't really listen. Sometimes people wait to hear the low-hanging fruit, the easy stuff to refute, or the easy things that they could disagree with, and then they don't listen to the bigger ideas. But whatever, I'll just say what's on my mind. For one, but I want to make sure that that's established. I'm not convinced we went to the moon. Point blank. Okay, here's something. Why do you believe we went to the moon? You saw it on TV? That would be a good start, right? If you saw it on TV, we went to the moon. What I say to that is I also saw Godzilla on TV. And I don't see all of you believing that Godzilla is real, or even a majority of you, or even a minority of you. So there's that principle right there. Just because you see something on TV doesn't necessarily make it true. That's for me. Maybe for you it does. It could have totally been faked, as they say, in a Hollywood set. So that's a possibility as far as I'm concerned. Maybe you've been to the moon. Well, I haven't. And from my position, I don't know. And that's a fair position to take from my position. From where I'm at, it's very fair, very logical, very in line with reason for me to say that I don't know, because I don't have sufficient evidence. And that's another thing. Even if you have a bunch of evidence that points to something, what do you mean by evidence? Just because a bunch of things suggest something, is that enough for you to just throw out all other possibilities and say, okay, I believe this now? Because there's a sign that points an arrow to this, now I'm following that. It's like, well, hang on a second, is it still a logical possibility for these other things to happen? Because you might not be doing justice to those if you're just, let me go where they're pointing, A lot of people do that, though. They're obsessed with evidence, especially in the atheistic community. And, gosh, I could trigger a lot of people right there just by saying atheistic community. What I mean by this is just the people who are atheists, which is a lot of people. Yeah, so evidence, I think there's also a lot of evidence. There's also at least some evidence, some pretty good evidence, pretty convincing evidence out there that we didn't go to the moon or that it was faked. But at the end of the day, I just want to get this out there, that regardless of what evidence is here or there, I don't worship the evidence. I think that's important to note. If any of you posted a link to an article, that shows something, if you think that's going to be evidence that's going to convince me, it probably won't. And that's not to say, that's just to say that this is such a big issue that a little computer in my bedroom or my office is not going to convince me. It's too big of an issue for one article, But it didn't take much. I don't think it took much for the most of us in the world to be believing that we went to the moon. Go outside, you know, if you forget everything that you've been told, you go outside and look at the moon and ask yourself, do you really think we've been there? You know, I ask myself that, and this doesn't account for much, but I do. Sometimes I go out there and I look at the moon and I think to myself, I really don't believe we've been there. When I look at the moon, I'm like, I really don't think we've been there, but we could have, we may have. I'm not saying we didn't go to the moon. You know, don't get me wrong in this video. I wouldn't know. I don't have the know. I don't have the knowledge to say whether we've been to the moon or not. You know, and you may have heard a bunch of arguments for and against the moon landing. I guess I'm not really intending to go over all of those right now. I think the logical position, a very reasonable position to take is to be honest with yourself. Be intellectually honest with yourself. You know, do you have to take someone's word for it in order to believe or affirm that we landed on the moon? If so, then do you really know that we went to the moon, or are you just trusting that we went to the moon? Because there's a big difference. You know, I think a lot of people are trusting that we went to the moon, and then they're attacking people who are saying they don't believe we went to the moon, but they're not believing either. You know, if you're getting frustrated with people or attacking them making intellectual attacks, saying, "Oh, you're an idiot" or something like that, because they say, "I'm not convinced we went to the moon. I don't believe we went to the moon." Look at yourself. Do you really believe we went to the moon, or do you just trust that we went to the moon? You know, maybe they're saying they don't believe it, and maybe you don't believe it either. You know, maybe you just trust it, and you're attacking them for not believing it when you don't either. That's a possibility. I mean, belief is such a complex thing because so many people they have this very maybe oversimplified definition of belief. You know, and then some people have some really sophisticated, deep definitions of belief. You know, a lot of people use the word belief really shallow, and a lot of people use it really deep. And so, when I say belief, maybe you're thinking of something totally different than what I'm thinking about. And maybe that applies more to the word knowledge. Do you know? Yeah, you could probably take everything I said in the past 60 seconds and change it to knowledge, not belief. Let's see. Yeah, I think, do you know we went to the moon? If you don't know it, then why would you attack other people who are not sure? You know, maybe they're just being more honest than you are. And if you say that you know we went to the moon, how do you know you know? Is your knowledge based on trust? You know, and then all of a sudden you think that trust is something that can give knowledge? You know, think about that. What ramifications does that have for your worldview? And I look like a friggin' ghost probably right now. Just the lighting. I have just that one ceiling light, and I artificially ramped up the lighting in the video to be maxed out the lighting so that way the shadows aren't too harsh. It probably looks, to me, it looks a little bit worse than it did in the last video. There's a video on YouTube called "Something Funny Happened on the Way to the Moon." It's like a 45-minute documentary, somewhere around there. And I think everybody should see that film. Everybody who's seen the moon landing footage, I think they should also see that film. I think it has some very convincing footage that we didn't go to the moon. But just like the original moon landing footage could have been faked, this other footage could have been faked as well. But that is some pretty convincing footage, generally speaking, that a lot of people, by a lot of people's standards, they would say, yes, this is evidence, this is proof that we did not go to the moon, that the moon landing was faked. There is apparent footage of the Apollo 11 crew faking the crescent of the Earth with their spaceship window. And I can't really explain it. It kind of shows that the whole 1972 picture, is that what it is? The blue marble, the first and only full photo of the Earth, as they say, it kind of shows that that's faked. If that footage is real, I mean, that shows it. And I really don't trust NASA. I think that NASA's not doing it good. If we really did go to the moon, and if NASA really has, if they're really doing everything they say they're doing a really, really poor job at documenting it for us. Go look at NASA's official photos of Earth. You get that one blue marble from 1972 or whatever, that they say is the original. That's the first photo of Earth, all of Earth in one photo. I don't think you can find another one. I don't think you can find another one from NASA where they say this is also another full photo of Earth. Every single other photo, to my knowledge, they claim that it is pieced together by satellite images. And check all the other photos of Earth from NASA. You're not going to get one that's consistent with the 1972 marble, in my opinion. I don't think I couldn't. Every single one I find is different. On so many of them, it seems like you can see clouds that are copied and pasted in certain areas. If we have satellites out there far enough to go to the moon and all that, why can't they be showing us more pictures of the Earth from out there? Why is it we have one solid photo that even that has some pretty convincing footage that it was faked? That's pretty big, is pictures. You see these pictures of Earth, and it's like the continent, just the continents on Earth are like, like America, like you got the Earth, and America is like this big, and then it's like compared to the 1972 photo of Earth, America is like that big, and so it's like the same ball, the same size ball, but then the continents are like different sizes within that ball, and so it's like that doesn't make sense. No, that's off. One of those is doctored at least. It would be very difficult for them to fake multiple consistent photos of Earth, perhaps, and perhaps that's why they're not taking more than one. They say they took one. To my understanding, NASA says they took one solid photo of Earth, and the rest are pieced together by satellite images. That's fishy. If that's not fishy to you, I think you're pretty gullible on the issue. And feel free to, tell me otherwise. Feel free to make your arguments, or your claims. So that's a problem. And then there's another issue that I just realized. A lot of people say, well, I don't care if the moon landing was faked or not. I don't care. What's it change for me? What's it, I still got to go up and go to work every day, provide for my family. Well, what does it matter to you? I mean, if the moon landing was faked, then you're being lied to on a mass level by your government, and that's a problem. If you don't care that you're being lied to, then you're probably going to continue to be lied to even more if you're not going to take a stand, you know. And I think as far as taking a stand goes, I mean, talking about it is one of the first steps to it. You know, a good thing that you can do, a great thing. Let me try not to lose my train of thought here. Yeah, I mean, if you're being lied to about the moon landing, it means that you're funding a government organization to feed you lies. Your tax money is going to NASA, and if NASA's lying, you're funding you're paying NASA to lie to you. You know? That doesn't matter to you. You don't care where your money goes. That's something you should probably ask yourself too. You don't care where your money goes? Okay. You know, it's funny because so many people say, I care about what's true. A lot of people say, facts don't care about feelings. I don't care about feelings. I care about facts. And so many people are like prideful, even arrogant. So many people are like, I care what's true. I want what's true. So many people make it such a strong thing. But then when it comes down to it, some of those same people are going, well, I mean, if I'm lied to about the moon landing, then I don't care. What's it going to do for me? And it's like, okay, so you really don't care what's true, do you? Yeah, and I have like a ton of like thoughts, just about the little things on the moon landing. Like they say it, and this is where maybe somebody could teach me. They say that the moon is traveling further. It's leaving Earth's orbit, like it's traveling further away from Earth, like, what is it, like 2 inches every year or something? 2 inches a day, 2 inches a year? I think it's like 2 inches a year or something. Maybe it's 2 inches a day, I don't know. Regardless, how do they even know that? I was kind of thinking about that. Instead of just taking everything at face value, taking everything for granted. That's another thing with any kind of scientific questioning. People questioning the shape of the Earth or if we went to the moon or not. So they're questioning. Isn't that one of science's like biggest mottos? Is question everything. And then when you get people who question scientific consensus, they get ridiculed. That's another thing I notice. Some of you guys are ridiculing people for just questioning. A lot of it is just questioning. I've been ridiculed for questioning. It didn't make me feel like an idiot, but they treated me like one, And I knew it was kind of like them that they were the idiots. But, yeah, some people are out here questioning science, and the scientific community is attacking them and getting upset with them, or just ridiculing them for being more scientific than they are. So that's kind of silly, That's kind of a silly thing. Question everything. Okay, well let's question some of the scientific things too. But yeah, with the moon getting 2 inches further away from the Earth every year, or whatever the claim is, how do they know that? And maybe there's like, a solid, reasonable explanation for how they could determine that. That's fine. I'm not against believing that, but I question how they know it. I mean, are they shooting a laser at the moon and then like determining how fast it's? Because like, think about it for yourself. For a moment, don't take for granted that don't just assume that NASA has these superhuman technology. You just for a moment consider that NASA doesn't have this like magical stuff that's just gonna like, oh, they're the big science corporation, they're gonna know. You know, don't think that. Just think for yourself, how would you determine how far that moon in the sky is leaving Earth? Would you ever be able to know? What tools would you need to know? That seemed like a pretty wild thing to do, wouldn't it? Well, a super big telescope, you know, and then we could send probes out there or whatever. It's like, well, what? Wait, how does that work? I don't know. It's just a little thought I had. I didn't do my. I don't remember if I did research on this part, and that's fine. But I thought like, okay, and this is the kind of thinking we all need is original thought. When you hear a claim, think to yourself. You know, think like an engineer or think like a scientist. You know, think, okay, they say that moon travels 2 inches away from the Earth every year. I'm just going to use that example. I think that's what it is. It could be something different, but I think, okay, are we shooting like a laser at it and then like determining how long it takes for the laser to hit or something? But then it's like, what if there's atmospheric stuff getting in the way of the laser that's slowing down the speed or something, you know? And then that's how they're determining it. Or what if you know, the moon is like a rocky surface, you know, and so what if one year the laser hits a rock, and then the next year the laser hits a rock that's 2 inches further away, and then another next year the laser hits another rock coincidentally that's two more inches, you know, further lower, you know, so they're hitting a different spot on the moon every time. You know, I think of these things. And yeah, that's nothing, right? That's just like some idiot guy thinking he doesn't. What does he know about NASA? You know, leave the thinking to the NASA scientists, right? Well, no, I think it's good that we think about these things. You know, those are fine questions. It's that kind of thinking that's going to push us forward. You know, maybe, yeah, that was just a little thing that I was, it's just one example, you know? Like, you hear a claim, are you just believing it? Do you worship science? Are you a worshiper of science? Something comes out from NASA and you're just like, oh, look, this is what, I 100% fully believe this. You know, that's dangerous to me. That's dangerous to just trust that much. You know, why don't you think for yourself? Why don't you be smart? You know, and be more intellectually honest. And be like, you know what? You say that, that's cool, but I'd have to take your word for it. You know, why can't more people just admit, hey, yeah, that's a wild claim, that's amazing, you know, I'd have to take your word for it, though. You know, why can't we start there? And then someone says, hey, do you believe this? You go, well, I do believe it, but I don't know it. I just believe it. I'm just believing what somebody told me, you know. And I think NASA's a big organization, so I'm just going to trust them. You know, that's fair enough, right? And it's like, yeah, that's fair enough. That's fine. But once people claim to know, then it's like, well, hey, hang on a second. How do you know? You've never been there, right? You've never put your eyes through the equipment, the man-made equipment that could be faulty anyways, that NASA says they use to you know, make their claims, justify their claims. So I think for the majority of us people, us standard people, I think possibly the most reasonable, from the position I'm at right now with what I know right now, which is almost nothing. I don't know much, but I know how to reason. I know how to think. I think that most of us don't have we're not in a position to be claiming knowledge that we went to the moon landing. So right there, we should all be, those of us who are in that boat, which I think is vast majority of us, if we don't know, then we should stop attacking people who are honest enough to admit they don't know. You know? And then people who say that we didn't go to the moon for sure, like we did not go to the moon. On the other end, I honestly, I don't think they have enough information to really 100% be certain of it. I guess generally speaking, you know. But like I said, I do lean on that end, that we don't know. I do lean on the side. I don't believe we went, and some days I believe we didn't go. And then other days, you know, I'm kind of like, oh, maybe we did. But that's rare. I think most of the time I just, and that's okay to be like, hey, some days I'm this, some days I'm that, because I'm not the one making active claims. You know, I'm not the one making positive claims that we did or didn't go, you know? So, I'm reserving my freedom to to think either way. I don't know. But I think people look really silly. I think people look really ridiculous when they attack others for, like intellectually attack. Like they try to make others look stupid for saying, hey, I don't know. How would I know? Trusting what an organization said. NASA apparently says so themselves, that they can't get men past the Van Allen belt. Can't get our men past low Earth orbit. But you think we did it in 1969 for the first Apollo mission or whatever? And then, you know, we lost the technology. You know, those are explanations, those are excuses maybe, but you know, that doesn't just, I don't just buy them. It's enough we're funding NASA, you know, and now I have to buy their belief, buy their claims too. This kind of topic, man, I could go on for a long time. I could just keep going and going with this. And another thing that kind of makes me not believe, or it doesn't help, is that little thing below the YouTube video that usually or always comes up when people talk about the word moon landing, when the phrase moon landing, when that thing pops up at the bottom of the video. You know, Apollo 11 was a mission in 1969, whatever, you know, the moon landing, you know, it really happened. When YouTube starts forcing it down your throat, or the government starts forcing it down your throat, that it definitely happened, that's kind of, I don't know about that, you know, that's kind of fishy, where it's like, well, why does that need to be there? You know? Kind of like they want anyone who listens to me, or whoever's saying this thing, to see some official seal of, oh look, yeah, look, see Wikipedia or whatever, you know, this proves it, you know, this asserts it. There's also this obsession with like facts, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but facts are so thrown around. It's all, you know, it's a fact, we went to the moon, that's a basic fact, and people just say it, you know, they just spit it out. It's like vomit, like they're just vomiting everywhere, you know. And it's like, but it seems most people I talk to, you know, 99% people I talk to, what they say, they say really strong things. They you know, they're not taught to really think. They're taught to repeat what they've been told. It's like most people I talk to, it seems like they'll say really strong things. They have really strong positions, but it's like it's clear that they haven't figured it out. They haven't really thought about it for themselves. You know, like before I say something, what I said goes through so much internal filters that I don't think anybody can for the most part, can refute something I said because I've already refuted it myself, and that's why it came out the way it did. Is because I believe I can defend it now. You know. I do love watching videos, hearing people talk one way or the other, you know, on, yeah, I think we went to the moon landing because this. No, I don't think we went to the moon landing. I don't think we landed on the moon because of this, or I do think we landed on the moon because of this. I love seeing that stuff, and I love thinking about the argument from both sides. I enjoy that stuff. The family gatherings get very interesting and fun as well with those conspiracy talks. That's another thing too I was gonna say. I don't think I said it yet. Like, you know, oh, you have all these gaming videos, and now all of a sudden you're doing like some kind of crazy wacko conspiracy thing. Continuing from my last video about that stuff, about how I was sitting here talking with like the YouTube view obsession, how people are like obsessed with like how many YouTube subscribers they get and stuff, and like compromising their own, what they would normally do for like just trying to please, people are trying to please the algorithm. I'll make whatever I want for this channel, you know, and a lot of people say like, hey, you may want to like branch your channels out, so like do gaming for one channel, just all gaming, so that way if someone subscribes to your channel, they see all gaming, and then you're not going to post some video about the moon, you know, and then they're going to be like, I didn't subscribe for this, you know, and they're not going to watch it, and it's going to hurt your channel because YouTube thinks it's a bad video, and then whatever, you know. And so they're like, yeah, you know, split up your content, organize your content by channels. You know, if you're going to talk philosophical, make a philosophical channel, then do your gaming channel, then do your podcast channel where you talk about everything, whatever, you know. No, I'm just going to put it all in one freaking channel. You don't want to subscribe, don't subscribe. You don't want to watch, you want to subscribe and watch what you want to watch what you want to watch. I don't care. I'm not worshiping the algorithm. I don't care what the algorithm does. Maybe that's not totally fair to say, because, you know, I like it when the algorithm shows one of my videos, you know. I think right now my most watched video is 1.8 thousand, so 1,800 views. That's cool, you know. That was pretty cool. I had a bunch of people comment on the video I made, and it was pretty controversial stuff. Stupid stuff, you know, like not important stuff, like stuff about a video game. And they, like, I got a lot of controversial comments, and then I had like an hour-long video where I responded to everybody's comment, you know. I enjoyed that stuff. Really enjoyed that stuff. So it's fun when the algorithm pushes your video out. But I'm not going to go out of my way to like walk on eggshells to be like, oh, I need to please the algorithm. Oh no, the algorithm. You know, you're worshiping the algorithm. You know, can we come up with a better name for YouTube for those people then? If that's what they're going to do, instead of YouTube, you entertain yourself. It's like worship the algorithm. I don't know, maybe that's it. And then the moon landing footage, the original moon landing footage, just, you know, you see the craft that like supposed to have landed on the moon, and just, it looks like it's wrapped in tinfoil, you know, so it looks like it's just like made of like tinfoil. Like, it looks like it's something that was made, like designed to fool someone in the 1960s or 70s. You know, with like TV being new, you know, and then there's like, you have the whole like futuristic thing, you know, it's like shiny, you know, look at our shiny metals and stuff, and like, this is futuristic, this is today, you know, this is our thing, buy it, you know, buy our shiny space craft. And it's like, when you look at it now, it's kind of like, wow, that looks like a bunch of tinfoil wrapped around some metal, and just it looks too flimsy. Like a lot of it looks so flimsy. And maybe it's true. Maybe that thing freaking did go to the moon, you know. And I'm just saying it looks really delicate, and it does look delicate. But maybe it was like all in a shell. Maybe it was like in a hard shell, and then like it expanded, and like the tinfoil stuff was on the inside. I don't know. You look at that freaking picture; it doesn't look right. um, what else do I got about the moon? There's other things too, like what is the moon? You know, there's a lot of people saying. I think a lot more people nowadays are skeptical of the moon landing, and that's cool. That's great. Oh shoot! Now I have two thoughts. I gotta say one before I forget the other. Yeah, so I think there's a concern where it's like people can go so, I don't want to say anti-science, but people could get so skeptical of science, like I already am. The scientific method, people can shoot, this is just branching into so many things. Two things, there's a scientific consensus and then the scientific method. Both are unreliable sources of truth. I'm saying that. The scientific consensus, if you're just going to take it for granted, well, that's a problem. You're not questioning it. And if people are going to attack me for questioning it, or anyone else for questioning it, then look at what you're doing. You're treating science as dogma now. Now it's all of a sudden you have to just accept it. And so at what point, at what fundamental scientific law are we supposed to just accept it? So when does science stop becoming science, and when does science start becoming science? If you're going to attack someone for questioning the most fundamental scientific propositions, you know, be very careful with that, because it's no longer, you know, you got to be careful with that, right? Because then you're not really, is it really science at that point? Or are you just forcing it down their throats? So then there's the scientific method. The scientific method is it's guesswork. It's man's best guess. And I'll probably go into another video on this and I'll get more into it. But the scientific method is the embodiment of the logical fallacy of affirming the consequent. The scientific method is logically fallacious. It's an illogical method to determining truth, and I'll break that down in another video. But ultimately it's man's best guess. The scientific method is guesswork. That's why we have to test it so many times and test it against each other. Look at what Richard Feynman says. You know, Richard Feynman, the Nobel Prize winning scientist, right? Richard Feynman says, you can never prove anything true with science, and I'm paraphrasing him, but I think it's a fair paraphrasing. And I could be quoting him directly, like word for word, verbatim, I don't know. But he says, you can never prove anything true in science. You can only prove things false with the scientific method, you know. Because there's always there can always be another experiment that could prove your theory wrong, right? So it's the whole like infinity problem, you know. But also with the scientific method and coming up with some scientific conclusions, another problem is, the problem of induction. There's so many. In order to conduct a proper I'll probably get into this again, you know, but in order to conduct a proper experiment, scientific experiment, you must have all relevant variables under control. You know, you must have all relevant variables under control in your scientific experiment if you're going to conduct a scientific experiment properly. And the problem is we can never be sure we have all relevant variables under control because of the problem of the unknown. If we knew for sure we had all relevant variables under control in our experiment, then there would be hardly a reason to conduct the experiment to begin with. We just don't know what's out there tampering with our experiments. And when you start thinking that you do is when you're really unscientific, not creative with your thinking, arrogant, ignorant. I mean, you're just not a great scientific mind at that point. And you need to be humbled. So, yeah, the real high thinkers, especially in the scientific community, are going to say and admit, hey, we don't know how this stuff works, but we started playing around with physics and stuff and what we've got going on, and we were able to reliably produce these results, and now we have an airplane, now we have a computer chip, now we have now we have a spaceship that takes us to the moon. But so with the scientific method and messing around, it's like we're in a sandbox on the Earth, right? We're in a sandbox and we're all trying to figure these things out. But we can come up with some reliable results sometimes. Sometimes it kills people because the science just isn't reliable and we mess up. But it's like, okay, I could pour this blue chemical in with this green chemical and it explodes. Right? And so, hey, get some of that blue chemical, get some of that green chemical, put it together and it'll explode. Why does it explode? Well, we don't really know. We can guess, we have theories. Well, we think it's this property and then they put them together and they explode. We still don't know why. Well, we have theories, but hey, we got that engine to work, or we got this nuclear reactor to work because we know putting these chemicals in here makes it explode. That's where, yeah, we can produce reliable results with science. But we don't. What if it's not really the blue chemical and the green chemical that's causing the explosion? What if it's an alien in outer space watching us going, okay, every time they put these two chemicals together, I'm going to cause an explosion with my hyperactive spaceship or whatever, That's just an example of how freaking ignorant we are as mankind. And you might say, oh, that's ridiculous. You're being ridiculous. It's like, but ridiculous according to whose standards? Your standards are child's play. I'm open to all the possibilities of the truth of what's going on out there. And so I think the real intelligent minds, the honest minds, are going to admit, yeah, science is our best guess, and that's as far as it goes. And as far as that goes. So I don't mean to get too much into science. I could go into science and the issues we battle with science more in like a more specific science video. But that's a big problem. And people worship science, man. People worship science, and they don't like it when you attack science. People are used to attacking Christianity or religion or theology. People are used to attacking that, but they're not used to having science attacked. And when you attack science, usually they don't go intellectual. They start going just logical fallacies as attacks, ad hominems. They start to attack your character instead, right? Where we should stay logical, right? I've also heard, since we're on the topic of the moon, right? I've heard theories that the moon is actually made of plasma. Like people say they've like you see pictures of people saying they took a picture of the moon and you could in the crescent of the moon where it's hidden, like the crescent, the dark part that you don't see, that the moon's supposed to be here, but this is the darked out part because the crescent, you see like a star behind it, and so it's like what, the moon see through or what? That's a weird one to me. The moon certainly looks like it's a rock, like it looks like it has craters on it, but I haven't looked into that one much. It's fun enough to where I could see myself what are they saying? The people who are saying the moon is plasma, what are they saying? It does seem like it's a solid rock, but then it's tidal locked. the moon, like it's supposed to be orbiting us, but then it's like we constantly see the face of it all the time. That's really weird. That's really fishy. We have the craters. They say okay, you got the craters on the moon, right? You got this crater, you got that tiny crater, this tiny crater over here, this gigantic crater. All the craters on the moon, from what it looks like, it's like all the craters on the moon look about the same depth. But then they have like totally different, sizes. So people are thinking like, is it like an iron surface, and like doesn't matter what size asteroid or whatever hits it, it's like it's hitting a firm surface that will not go deeper, and so people are thinking like the moon's a freaking satellite, like a Death Star kind of thing. But I love hearing these different ideas, instead of just being indoctrinated that, oh hey, the moon's a rock, lava. The moon the moon is thought to have had lava flowing in it or from it before. If you don't believe that, I mean, that's official NASA stuff right there, to my understanding. I think I read that from the NASA website, that the moon is thought to have been flowing with lava or magma, one of the two, I don't know. So, just, and I don't want to take away from science. I just think science claims too much for itself, but it's pretty cool to like look into that stuff and think about it. The moon is a beautiful thing. I believe God put the moon above us to rule the night, a light to rule the night. And there's something about the moon. You go look at the moon, there's something deep, like almost like seems deeply spiritual about it. You go look at the moon, there's that. It's wild. It's like we got all these little buildings, we created all these towers and houses and cars and all these things that we interact with every day. But then you go outside at night and you look at that moon, and it's like we didn't create that. And that is freaking massive. It's freaking wild. It's just like it's like a floating rock in the sky. And I think life gets more interesting when you don't take for granted what the consensus is. And I'm not saying I'm not being this way because it's more interesting. I'm being this way because it's more rational. I'm interested in being rational. I think the more rational person is going to question NASA instead of just, worship NASA. Blindly follow NASA. Anyways, that's all I got.